Okay, here we have our air intake system from AEM, and what we're going to do today is we're going to go ahead and put this on this 2013 Sierra Denali. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start this truck up and let you listen to this stock intake system. Now one of the things you're going to notice when we get this new one on here by AEM is an increased airflow, which you're going to be able to hear that sound. What that's going to do for us is it's going to give us better airflow into our intake, which should increase our horsepower and our torque and give us better performance on this truck. As you just heard, you don't hear a lot of airflow with this stock system on here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get this stuff out of here and put this new air intake system by AEM in here. But to do that, what we need to do is we got to take this air box out of here. We'll have to get this coolant overflow tank out of our way. We'll have to take this cover off and remove all of this air intake stuff, including the MAP sensor, PCV valve, and the other components that are attached here. So let's go ahead and get started with that now. Now that we've got all the old factory stuff out of our pickup, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start putting this box and these tubes and things together so that we can get this installed and into that truck. First thing we want to do is go ahead and take this rubber grommet here and put it on the round hole. As you can see, this box has a square hole and a round hole, and we want to make sure we put this on the round hole. And basically, this stuff works just like weather stripping. It has a channel that's actually in the rubber, and you just feed that over the plastic of the hole. Once we get this seal installed in the side of our box, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and get our grommet for our bracket for our air minder, which basically tells us when we need to replace the filter. So we'll go ahead and we'll get this and we'll attach it. If you can see on the side of the box here, there's these two screws that are in here already with a hole. This attaches right above that hole. The next step, once we get our filter minder bracket on here, is to go ahead and install this rubber grommet into the hole in the bracket. Okay, the next step is to take our filter minder, and then we'll go ahead and attach this hose to the underside of it on this hose barb. And then we'll take the other end of our hose, feed it through the rubber grommet, and then the hole I showed you earlier, right below the grommet, we'll take this into the hose and we'll place it into that hole. And then what we want to do is go ahead and pull this through from the inside. And then we'll place our filter minder into the grommet. We've got our filter minder on our new air box, so we'll go ahead and set that off to the side for right now. The next step then is to take this mass airflow sensor off of our old airbox cover and install it onto our new air intake tube. Now when you take this off, it's very important not to touch these wires that are inside here, because those are actually what makes this sensor function, and if you break these, then your truck's not going to run properly. Now you can see on this new tube, it actually has an indent spot right here. Now on your mass airflow sensor, it has a stud that sticks down here, and that will go into there so that way you know you have this installed in the proper location. Now that we've got our mass airflow sensor back on our new air inlet tube, the next step is to go ahead and install our bracket onto this tube here now. So what we need is we need our rubber bushing. Now we have to make sure that we install the short end of this. If you can see this, there's a short end and a long end on the threads. Okay, and the short end is what we want to install into our tube. Now as you can see, there are no fittings or anything of that type to tighten this down, so we just want this as tight as we can get it by hand. Okay, the next step is to go ahead and take our bracket and install our bracket onto the stud. We'll do that using a flat washer and a flange nut. And for now, we're going to go ahead and leave this loose so that way we can adjust it once we get our intake tube back into this truck and get it set up where we need to be. Okay, now that we've got our intake tube ready to go, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and install the air box into the truck. Once we have this down in here, we'll go ahead and the bolts that we took out of the plate that was sat in the bottom of here, we're going to reuse those to attach this air box into this truck. Okay, the next step in the process is to go ahead and install this coupler. Now this coupler just attaches right over the throttle body. And once that's on there like that, then we'll take our hose clamps and we're just going to slide these over the top here, but we're going to leave them loose until we get everything in and adjusted and fitted. Okay, the next step we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and put our coolant reservoir back in place now. The next step we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead with a 7/32 drill bit and drill a hole right below the foot of the A and the AEM on this filter, which would go in right here. And what we're going to do then is we're going to put this little grommet in there with our 90-degree elbow, and this is where the tube is going to attach for our filter minder. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take our filter adapter and we're going to put it into our filter assembly. And then we'll take the large hose clamp and then we're going to want to attach that onto here. And what I'm doing now is I'm just loosening this up so that it'll fit over this. And we're going to leave this clamp loose just like we did the other ones until we get everything in place and settled into where we want it. Now that we've got that on there, we're going to go ahead and install this into the air box. Okay, right now what we're doing is we're going ahead and hooking our hose that runs from our filter minder to the elbow that we just put in. And we want to make sure we get this hose up on there good and secure and snug. And then we'll take our filter assembly and we'll put it down inside the housing. And we'll just let that sit there right now. We'll get back to that shortly. Now we're going to go ahead and attach our air intake tube. Okay, our next step is to go ahead and attach this bracket to the air box. Okay, the next thing we want to do is we want to install this rubber grommet into the hole in the back side of this air intake tube. And once we get this grommet installed in here, this is where our PCV tube is going to connect to from our engine to this air intake tube. Now that we've got our rubber grommet installed, what we're going to do is go ahead and put together our new PCV tube. And what we want to do is we want to take this barb connector and go ahead and put it in the one end of this 3/8 inch hose. And then we'll take one of these hose clamps and we'll go ahead and clamp this side. This is the side that we'll be attaching into the air intake tube. Now that we've got everything pretty much hooked up in here, there's one important step left that we don't want to forget, and that is to reconnect our wiring for our mass airflow sensor. Because if we forget this, we're going to get a check engine light and our truck is not going to run properly. So let's go ahead and get that hooked back up now. Now we're going to go ahead and put our cover on. Okay, now we've got the cover on here. Let's go ahead and start this truck up and see how it sounds. Okay, now this completes our install of our AEM air intake system.